Asha Degree was afraid of the dark. She was afraid of dogs. She never went anywhere without her older brother. She wouldn't even open the door for family members if her parents weren't home. So why did this 9-year-old pack her backpack, grab her Tweety Bird purse, and walk out of her house alone at 4 o'clock in the morning, into a freezing rainstorm, on Valentine's Day 2000? Truck drivers spotted her walking along a dark highway, moving with purpose, like she knew exactly where she was going. But when one driver turned around to help her, Asha ran into the woods and vanished. By sunrise, she was gone. And for 24 years, this case haunted investigators because nothing about it made sense. This is the story of what happened to Asha Degree. Asha Renee Degree was born on August 5, 1990, in Shelby, North Carolina, a small town about an hour west of Charlotte. She lived with her parents, Aquila and Harold Degree, and her older brother, O'Brien, in a cozy 2-bedroom duplex on Oak Crest Drive. The Degrees were a close-knit family. Both parents worked hard, Harold at a loading dock and Aquila at a piano factory. Despite their busy schedules, they were deeply involved in their children's lives. The family's world revolved around church, school, basketball, and each other. This was the year 2000, before smartphones took over our lives. The Degree household didn't have a computer. Aquila and Harold had made that decision deliberately. They'd heard too many stories about online predators, and they wanted to protect their children from those dangers. Their home was free from digital distractions, filled instead with family bonds and shared responsibilities. Asha was a bright, cheerful 9-year-old in the 4th grade at Fallon Elementary School. She loved math and science, and she was often selected as Student of the Week. She was a star point guard on her school's basketball team, a fierce competitor on the court, even though she was shy and quiet off of it. She already had big dreams for her future. She wanted to attend Winston-Salem State University and study science. She wanted to be a writer and an illustrator. Not many 9-year-olds have their lives mapped out like that, but Asha did. But here's what made Asha different from most kids her age. She was cautious, extremely cautious. She was afraid of the dark. She was afraid of dogs. She never went anywhere without her brother by her side. The two of them were inseparable, more like best friends than siblings. They even shared a bedroom. Her parents had taught her about stranger danger, and Asha took those lessons seriously. She wouldn't open the door for anyone, not even family members, if her parents weren't home. When she and O'Brien came home from school before their parents got off work, Asha was responsible and careful. She understood the potential dangers that could be lurking out there. The Degree family thought they'd done everything right. They'd built a protective environment. They'd taught their children to be safe. They'd created a life centered on love, faith, and security. So what happened next shouldn't have been possible. The weekend before Asha disappeared seemed perfectly normal. There were no warning signs, no red flags, nothing that would suggest a 9-year-old girl was about to walk out of her house in the middle of the night. Friday, February 11th, 2000. School was closed for the day, but Aquila and Harold still had to work. Asha and O'Brien spent the day at their aunt's house in the same neighborhood. That afternoon, they both had basketball practice at school. Just a regular day. Saturday, February 12th. This was the day of Asha's basketball game. Her team had been undefeated all season. They were riding high, confident, playing well together. But that Saturday, they lost their first game. And Asha didn't just witness the loss. She felt responsible for it. She fouled out before the game ended. She didn't finish. According to people who were there, Asha was upset. She cried. She felt like she'd let her team down, like she'd been the reason they lost their perfect record. But here's the thing. Kids get upset about games all the time. And by the time her brother's game started right after hers, Asha seemed fine. She was back to her normal, cheerful self, cheering O'Brien on from the stands. No one thought anything of it. Sunday, February 13th. The Degree family's typical Sunday. They went to church that morning. Asha had been staying at her cousin's house since Friday, so her parents picked her up before the service. After church, the family went to a relative's house for lunch, then came home. That evening, around 6:30, Asha took a nap. She was tired from staying up late with her cousins over the weekend. The sound of thunder woke her up around 8:30. She came out to the den and joined her mother and brother, who were watching TV. Harold was at work. He had a second job, and he was working that evening while his family settled in at home. Then, around 9 p.m., a car accident happened nearby. A vehicle hit a utility pole, and the power went out. Not just at the Degree house, but at several homes in the neighborhood. The family lit candles. They set up a kerosene heater to stay warm. Aquila's sister and her kids, who lived just across the street, came over to wait out the blackout together. Around 9:30, Aquila told the children it was time for bed. Even without power, it was still a school night. Asha and O'Brien went to their shared bedroom. The power came back on around 12:30 in the morning. Harold got home from work sometime after midnight. He found both of his children asleep in their beds. At 2:30 a.m., before he turned in for the night, he checked on them one more time. Asha was sound asleep. O'Brien was sound asleep. Everything seemed fine. But sometime after 2:30 a.m., O'Brien heard something. The sound of Asha's bed squeaking. He thought she was just moving around in her sleep, turning over, getting comfortable. He didn't think anything of it. He fell back asleep. He had no idea that his sister was packing her backpack in the dark. No idea that she was about to walk out the door, into a freezing rainstorm, alone. Monday morning, February 14th, 2000. Valentine's Day. Just before 6 a.m., Aquila woke up to start getting the kids ready for school. The night before, because of the power outage, the children hadn't been able to take their baths, so Aquila planned to have them bathe that morning before heading out. At 6:30 a.m., she opened the door to the children's bedroom. O'Brien was asleep in his bed, but Asha's bed was empty. Panic set in immediately. Aquila searched the entire house. Nothing. She checked the vehicles parked outside. Nothing. She ran across the street to her sister-in-law's house. Nothing. At 6:39 a.m., Harold called 911. By 6:41 a.m., police were at the house. They immediately deployed K9 units to try to track Asha's scent, but the dogs couldn't pick up anything. Despite all the rain from the night before, there were no footprints. The search was challenging. The storm had made the ground muddy and difficult to navigate. Investigators searched the house for any signs of forced entry. There were none. All the doors had been locked when the family woke up, but some of Asha's belongings were missing: her backpack, her jeans, her sneakers, and her Tweety Bird purse, the one her teacher had given her. Asha had her own house key. It appeared that she had let herself out and locked the door behind her. Everything pointed to one impossible conclusion: Asha had left on her own. But why? The search expanded rapidly. Law enforcement, volunteers, family, friends, everyone was looking for Asha. It became the largest search in Cleveland County's history at that time. They combed through dense woods, open fields, abandoned buildings. They distributed flyers. They posted missing person posters. The community rallied together, desperate to bring this little girl home. Then the media coverage started. Local newspapers and television stations in and around Shelby began reporting on the case. The story spread across North Carolina, and that's when the witnesses started coming forward. Jeff Roop was a truck driver for Sundrop Bottling Company. Around 4 a.m. that morning, he'd been driving south on Highway 18, a two-lane road that runs near the Degree family's home. And he saw something that stopped him cold. A small child, walking alone in the freezing rain, wearing a long white shirt, white pants, and pigtails, carrying a book bag. She wasn't running. She wasn't looking around frantically like she was lost. She was walking with purpose, like she knew where she was going, Roop later said. She was moving at a pretty good pace. Roop was concerned. It was 4 in the morning, pouring rain, freezing temperatures. What was a child doing out here alone? He turned his 10-wheel truck around, a difficult maneuver on that narrow, winding road.
He drove back toward her, intending to check on her, to see if she needed help. But she never looked up at him. She just kept walking. At the time, Roop had no idea that a 9-year-old girl had been reported missing just hours later. He didn't immediately connect what he'd seen to Asha's disappearance. It wasn't until he saw the news coverage that he realized what he'd witnessed. And that's when he contacted authorities. Around 4:30 a.m., there was another sighting. Roy Blanton Jr. and his father, Roy Blanton Sr., were driving their trucking route through the same area. They also saw a small figure walking along Highway 18. In the darkness and rain, they couldn't tell if it was a child or a small woman. Roy Sr. assumed it was some kind of domestic situation, maybe a woman who'd left her house after an argument and was out walking it off. They didn't call police either, not right away. It wasn't until Tuesday night, more than a full day later, that Roy Sr. saw the news reports about Asha's disappearance. That's when he called his son. When they compared notes about what they'd seen, they both came to the same conclusion. That wasn't an adult. That was a child. And there was one more detail, one that made this entire situation even stranger. When the first truck driver got closer to Asha, she didn't wave for help. She didn't call out. She didn't run toward him. She ran away. She ran off the road and into the tree line, into the woods. And that was the last confirmed sighting of Asha Degree. She was just over a mile from her house, walking away from home, in a storm, at 4 a.m. And when someone tried to help her, she fled into the darkness.
For days, searchers combed those woods looking for any sign of Asha. And then, they found something. On February 17th, just 3 days after she vanished, investigators searched a shed about a mile from where Asha was last seen. Inside, they found a Mickey Mouse hairbow, a marker, and a pencil. Asha's mother confirmed those belonged to her daughter. They also found candy wrappers matching the Valentine's candy Asha had received at school. But there was something else, a wallet-sized photograph of a young black girl. To this day, no one knows who she is. Then, over a year later, in August 2001, a construction worker made a shocking discovery. He was excavating land about 26 miles from where Asha disappeared when he found something buried, a black plastic trash bag. Inside that bag was another trash bag, and inside that was a child's backpack with Asha's name written on it. The backpack contained a Dr. Seuss book from her school library and a New Kids on the Block t-shirt. But Asha's parents said they'd never seen that shirt before. It wasn't hers. The FBI took everything to their lab for DNA testing. But in 2001, the technology wasn't advanced enough. The results came back by 2003, but whatever they found wasn't released publicly, and it wasn't enough to solve the case. Years passed. The reward grew to $45,000, but there were no arrests, no new leads, just silence. Until May 2016. That's when the FBI released new information. A witness had come forward, someone who saw a girl matching Asha's description being pulled into a dark green vehicle on Highway 18 the morning she disappeared. An early 1970s Lincoln Continental, or Ford Thunderbird, with rust around the wheel wells. The FBI said this vehicle had been seen twice that day, but they didn't explain where this information came from or why they'd waited 16 years to release it. And then 4 more years of silence. Until September 2024, when everything changed. In September 2024, law enforcement descended on multiple properties in Shelby, North Carolina. They were executing search warrants on homes owned by Roy and Connie Dedman, a couple who ran 2 local nursing homes. The Dedmans had 3 daughters, Lizzie, Sarah, and Anna Lee. In the year 2000, when Asha disappeared, they were teenagers. And there was one more person connected to this family, Russell Bradley Underhill, a Vietnam veteran who lived at their nursing home. He died in 2004. So why were investigators suddenly interested in them 24 years later? Because of DNA evidence. Modern DNA testing revealed a hair on Asha's undershirt, the one found in her buried backpack, matched Anna Lee Dedman, who was only 13 when Asha disappeared. And DNA on the trash bags that backpack was wrapped in, that belonged to Russell Underhill. The Dedmans had no known connection to Asha or her family. There was no innocent reason for their DNA to be on her belongings, unless they had contact with her. Investigators started connecting the dots. The Dedmans' house was only 6 minutes from where Asha was last seen on Highway 18. That same road was the route the Dedman daughters used to transport nursing home patients to the hospital, in old, unreliable cars. Roy Dedman owned 29 vehicles. 3 of them were green. When investigators interviewed Sarah Dedman in 2024, she told them her father had given her a dark green 1964 AMC Rambler back in 1999. And when police searched the properties, they found an old green car hidden on the property, similar to the vehicle witnesses described back in 2016. But the most damning evidence came in February 2025, when new search warrants revealed text messages between family members during the September 2024 searches. Anna Lee texted Lizzie, "I'm so sorry I just said all that. I am just in complete shock." Sarah texted Lizzie, "They think it's our shirt. I'm scared. Dad is probably going to be a huge suspect." Anna Lee, "You don't need to be talking to anyone. I'm at the lawyer's office now." And then the messages that changed everything. Sarah to Lizzie, "I just talked to the lawyer. The theory is I did it. Accident covered it up." Lizzie to her ex-husband, "I feel so horrible. I don't know what to do. I caused this." There was also a witness who came forward. A man named Thad Melanson said that in the mid-2000s, at a house party, he saw Lizzie drunk and sobbing, making statements about killing Asha. When Sarah overheard, she grabbed Lizzie's head and told her to shut up. Investigators gave Thad a polygraph test. He passed. As of now, no arrests have been made. No charges have been filed. Asha's body has never been found. But investigators have stated clearly, they believe Asha was the victim of a homicide, and that her body has been concealed. The Dedmans have denied any involvement. Their attorney has suggested Russell Underhill, who's been dead for 20 years, might be the link. But the DNA evidence and text messages tell a different story. After 24 years of silence, investigators finally have suspects. But one question remains. Why did Asha leave her house that night? What made this cautious little girl walk into a storm at 4 in the morning? Some think the basketball game upset her more than anyone realized. Others point to a book she was reading about a boy who runs away. Maybe she was trying to prove something to herself. Or maybe there's still something we don't know. Whatever the reason, Asha Degree walked out of her house on Valentine's Day 2000, and she never came home.